Today we're going to talk about the SBA small business programs for government contractors. We get a lot of people asking us, I get asked all the time, should I and when should I, if I should, join an SBA small business program, what we call tags sometimes, HUBZone, woman-owned, et cetera. And so we'll talk more about that. But my answer is always the same. Go after those after you start making money in the federal market. Otherwise, you're just doing what we call constructive procrastination. The idea is when you start a business, you want to start making money. And the more we start trying to do all these things like get certified, especially the certifications that require a lot of hoops, the more we're just going in the wrong direction. Instead, you should be learning how to sell. How do you define what you do and how do you sell it to somebody? The second thing you should really be doing is learning how to build relationships. It's one thing to have relationships and kind of piggyback off them moving forward, trying to have some success. But it's another thing when you're trying to build new relationships within an agency to go after new business, to talk to buyers or potential teammates that you can work with. So today we're going to be talking again about the small business programs that are out there and how you can track on them and know how to plan properly around those. And it's funny, I hate it when I forget something. Forget that title up at the top. This is supposed to be the small business programs title. I'm just missing a slide apparently. But today I'm going to talk about three main things. First thing is, what are those programs, right? And why do they exist? Why did the government even put them in place? The second thing I'm going to talk about, and I'll talk about these briefly, is when should you pursue each one of these small business programs? And then finally, I want to talk about, are these small business programs a golden ticket to a lot of money? Right? I often hear people out there in the social media world talking about how you can make a lot of money by getting these tags, these small business programs. I even hear people who are more informed government type folks saying you must get certified at certain points. It's really helpful. Well, let's talk about the reality of it. How much does getting these certifications align to making money? If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. In fact, right before I started the GovCon Chamber, I had started a HUBZone company, a small business program, and that's exactly why I started the GovCon Chambers, because I realized that program really wasn't doing well at all for the small businesses who had that certification. And so I started the GovCon Chamber to drive towards that. And I teach people that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. We're going to be talking about that today, but make sure you subscribe to my newsletter, the Government Contracting Success newsletter. We put a lot of extra information out there. When I drop directories of people's names, numbers, and emails, I let you know through that newsletter. So make sure you subscribe to that. And then for those of you who did register for training today, I really appreciate it. It's an easy thank you. So thank you for registering, and make sure you're inviting others. Let other people know about the training that we do. It's really helpful for them out there, and it's daily. So they can come in and check us out. Okay, let's get diving into what are the small business programs and why do they exist. I'm not here to create some sort of SBA pitch. I'm not here for the SBA. I don't work with them and they don't work with me. I'm telling you about the small business programs from a sales perspective, from a small business owner's perspective, and somebody who's helped and trained over 10,000 businesses in the last 5 years, right? So I have done a lot of this, and I like to just say it what it is, right? And rather than get into the formalities of it. I will show you in a minute how you can go look at the formalities yourself, but that's boring. What I like to do is to just really drive into what are the small business programs. So the first thing is, the way I like to look at them is just think about set-asides. The government has all these contracts that come out, and sometimes they set it aside to certain businesses within the federal market. When they set it aside, they're usually setting it aside to one of the small business programs. And so here you can see total small business program, which is just all of us small businesses. And the differentiator is there's large businesses, right? So anybody over, let's say 40 million for easy math, right? A lot of variation in there, but let's just say 40 million and above is a large business and 40 million and below is a small business. So that means including those of you who might just get started. So that's total small business. And if you see a set aside, going back to how I talk about this, sometimes opportunities or requirements is what the government calls it. sometimes they come out as total small business set aside. So that's why I have that in there as a separate program. You don't have to do anything for it. You pretty much just show up, and if you're not making a lot of money, you're automatically in the program. It's not a lot of extra work. The next 4 are a little bit more work. So there's the 8A Small Business Development Program. There's the HUBZone. There's a Woman-Owned Certified or Woman-Owned Small Business program, and then Service Disabled Veteran Owned. So let me talk about those for a second. And why do they exist? All of them kind of exist for a similar reason. These 5 programs, the way I've got it, are addressing basically an unfair playing field out there. So small businesses weren't getting a fair amount of the government contractor dollars spent. And on the given year, somewhere between 700 billion, and it goes up and down, right? But basically right now it's sitting around $700 billion, and small businesses weren't getting their fair share of it. And so the government put the Small Business Act in place a long time ago and said, hey, 23% of the the contracting dollars should try to go to smalls. They didn't even work that hard to say they must go to smalls, right? But they're trying to set aside 23% of the federal dollars to small businesses. The second program, the 8A program, is they call it small disadvantaged business. They sometimes put it in, but fundamentally it's for minority-owned small businesses that are socially and economically disadvantaged. The program has expanded a little bit, as it expanded through who is considered socially and economically disadvantaged in this country. But they basically put together this program that said these businesses can get 5% of those total contract dollars, right? And the reason that exists is because minority-owned small businesses, not all minority-owned small businesses, but the ones that qualify as socially and economically disadvantaged, they weren't getting a fair playing field, even though there was a total small business set aside. And so we said, let's recognize that. These are not in order of when they came out, but like the HUBZone program, I think this came out in 97 or something. That's for historically underutilized business zones. So basically it just means, like, where I really discovered it is I'm from California. There's not a ton of hub zones in California. We're a really wealthy state. But Oklahoma is where I started the GovCon chamber. And it wasn't until I got out there and my niece was out there and she was asking me, hey, what can I do about jobs? I was like, I'll just start a company out in Oklahoma. I don't care. I'm in DC, but I do IT work. We can do it there. And when I got there, I realized what a historically underutilized business zone was. It's pretty much the entire state of Oklahoma. 80% of it is underutilized. We have all these people in America, all these Americans who are having a hard time finding good jobs, et cetera. And so the government was trying to use its contract dollars to incentivize businesses to start and expand within these, towns, cities, et cetera. And so I'm not getting into explaining the details of where a hub zone is, but that's the second program. And that's like 3% is what the goal is for the government. They've never, ever hit it because they've never, ever cared to hit it. It's really important to understand about these goals. And one of the things I'll try to keep a theme, don't buy into the government, especially the SBA's hype that they're doing all this great stuff for small businesses. They're not. Really, any success numbers you see, it's because you are making it happen, not them giving it to us, not them really giving us a lot. These programs, yes, they're vital, they're important, but the government can do so much better. And I'll show you what I mean by that with data and evidence in a second. So the next one is the women-owned small business and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. And basically, they're both women-owned small businesses. Economically disadvantaged just means you're under a certain threshold, right? I'm not really going to go into that. You can learn about it. But this is where the government was saying, wow, we've got total small business set aside out there, but women-owned small businesses are at a disadvantage in the government contracting world. Let's do a set aside there. And I think that percentage is 5%, right? So we're saying, let's try to get 5% to the women-owned small businesses. I can't remember if they just hit it once in the last couple of years, but they've never hit it. That thing's been around for a long time. It's like, how can you miss this when women-owned small businesses, there's tens of thousands of them, right? The 8A program, to put it in perspective, there's only like 6,000 companies that are that, but there's tens of thousands of women-owned small businesses. And so these certifications, while they're a good idea, they still require your effort to have success. And I'll talk more about that. And the last one is service-disabled veteran-owned small business. So not veterans, service-disabled veterans who got the designation of 0% or higher that they're disabled. And so that's a certain group, and the government set that aside for 3%. I think they just increased it. And primarily the VA is a big lover of that, which you'll see in a second. So these programs, again, like with service disabled veteran owned, the reason they put that in place is because they were trying to do more for the veterans who have been hurt or injured in, which I guess is the same thing, right? But in service to the country while they were in the military. So they're coming out going, how can we help these people come out and have a shot at growing their business? They set that aside. The VA, this is a very unusual one where the SDVO small business program, for the most part, is like everybody else. It's got a goal. But the VA says we are SDVO first in the Department of Veterans Affairs. And you'll see in a second, but they always look to SDVOs first to go, how can we contract with SDVOs? And so a massively higher percentage going to SDVOs in the VA than any other agency, including Army, Navy, Air Force, et cetera. Okay, so that's what the programs are. There's some qualifications in there, and maybe I could talk about them here. And when should you pursue each of these small business programs? And here's the reason I'm doing this, right? I'm not just trying to do some training on the small business programs in general. What I find is people care too much about these, and they get into them too early if that's the case. And so I'll just start with the 8A small business program. This is one of the programs that is the most valuable. And again, I go back and forth between calling it a tag or a small business program. It's all lovingly still just about that program. But the 8A business development program is designed for a 9-year window to help a small business excel in business development. In this case, that doesn't mean sales. That means literally all parts of your business in 9 years to grow. And so the idea with this program is if you only have 9 years, then you don't want to get started until you know what you're doing. And so that's why I say, excuse me one second, you want to wait until after you have, this is my opinion, you want to have at least $2 or $3 million, and or you want to have at least 3 past performances in your target agency. So here's an example. The Army spends 10 or 20 times more than any other agency anywhere in the federal government with 8A small businesses. And so what I would submit is that if you're planning on getting an 8A certification or whatever we want to call it, right? If you're going to get 8A certified, then you want to make sure that you're already in the Army. You've already got any clearances. You've already got some traction with some teammates. And when I say 3 past performances, that could be prime contract or subcontract. That's totally cool if it's subcontract. But you want to be in the agency. That way, the minute you get your 8A certification, you're out of the gate selling back to the government. Too many 8As spend a year or 2 or 3 with no money at all coming from the 8A certification because they're learning, how do I sell to the government? How do I build relationships? I'm recommending you do all that before you get 8A certified. That way, when you get into the 8A window, you know what you're doing. Now you're going to maximize that. And instead of pulling 5, 10 million out of the program, you'll graduate small. I mean, you literally can do that if you just line it up. The HUBZone program is a little different. It really is all these you can find out, and I'll show you in a second, but you can find the qualifications. They're all pretty simple in here. But the HUBZone, one of the things I see here is people go, oh, maybe I should move into a HUBZone. No, if you live in a place that says that it's a HUBZone already in your office and your work environment is in a HUBZone area, then go ahead and get certified. The problem with these, though, is people tend to get the certification thinking it's going to lead to money. It will not. I think I might talk about this in a minute. You will not get contracts any faster. In fact, I would submit you would get it slower because you're kind of looking for the advantage that a HUBZone or a woman-owned certification would give you, and it's not there. And you're not going to win bigger contracts because you have these. You're only going to get contracts faster and win contracts that are bigger when you learn how to sell, right? When we all learn how to sell, then we're able to chase that work. We have our past performance. It helps us win. So the HUBZone, don't get it unless you're already in, and don't bother getting it in the first year or 2. It's just a complete distraction from what you really should be doing is trying to find teaming partners to start getting revenue and start growing. Then you can say, hey, let me go take a look at the HUBZone certification. The woman-owned small business certification and the SDVO, I would say just get that immediately because literally it's you just have to show some paperwork that says, here's where we're at. There's no massive value with it. I will tell you about an advantage in 1 second. But the economically disadvantaged one, I'm recommending you wait, again, a little bit 1 or 2 years. Same thing with the HUBZone, because it's a lot of extra work to prove that you're economically disadvantaged compared to just proving you're a woman-owned small business. If you go after the 8A and you're a woman-owned small business, then you can kind of do them in parallel. But the biggest thing I want you to take away from here is the fact that you go after these certifications will not help you get any business faster. It won't help you get bigger contracts. And so here's the last thing I want to do before I jump into showing you some facts about these programs is that are the small business programs a golden ticket to your success? No, they are not. That's the short answer, right? There's this myth out there that if I get certified as SDVO or woman-owned or HUBZone or 8A, I'll have access to a lot more opportunities. And that's going to lead to success, but it will not. The only thing that's going to lead to success is if you got a strong, clear, focused offer and you got past performance and experience to go after it. Sometimes you go after subcontracting and next times you go after prime, but that's what leads to success, right? Is that process that we talk about. So it's not going to go there. And also, if you look at a woman-owned or a HUBZone certification, hey, if I get that, I'm going to get success. I'm saying that really the fact is you're kind of thinking in this get-rich-quick way. It doesn't mean you're, consciously doing that, but you're thinking, if I just get this certification, if I just get this contract vehicle, I'm going to start winning contracts. That's not how it works. The way sales works is getting in and understanding a teammate or a buyer and understanding their problems, aligning that to your solution. That takes time. It's not transactional. It will come faster and faster the more experience you have, but it still is work. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And so don't look at this. Don't look at these small business programs as some golden ticket. I got it. My problems are solved, or my sales are going forward, or I'll lead to success. The other thing that I wanted to say is that there are benefits, right? I don't want to be naysaying this. I'm just trying to really put it in time perspective. But there are benefits to getting your certification. One is similarly situated entities. So an example is if you're 8A, woman-owned, HUBZone, or SDVO, and they set aside an opportunity for that designation, if somebody else is going after it as a prime contractor, they could pull you in, and the two of you could go after it and have a third partner getting 49%. And you and them, because you're both women-owned small businesses, could do something called similarly situated entities. Basically, it just means these two are women-owned small business, so they can team up on the 51%. One company doesn't have to have the 51%. So that's really cool. The second thing is having a certification, sometimes good for commonality with somebody else. I was in the Army, right? So when I find somebody in the Army, I'm like, hey, we were both in the Army. Well, if we're women-owned small businesses, I might reach out to build a relationship with a teammate or potential teammate and say, I see you're a woman-owned small business. We're a woman-owned small business. Could we talk? I'd love to sit there and see if there's a way for us to team together. It's instantly kind of breaking the ice, which I like about it. And then we find ways to chase opportunities. And then the last thing, set-asides absolutely can be a reality, but you will see not a lot. But I'm very good at sales, and I really like this idea of grabbing an opportunity and pushing it to the set aside I want. Instead of going into SAM.gov and hoping it's there, I go find something I'm really good at and try to drive it. That's a whole separate training. But set asides out there can be a reality, which means you're taking 300,000 or 400,000 competitors in SAM, right? People who are selling to the federal government, and you're shrinking it down to your world. So like I said, with 8A, there's 6,000 companies. There's about 5,000 or 6,000 hub zones and about 10 or 14,000 SDVO and women-owned small businesses each. But that's a smaller pool. That's how you do sales, is get rid of your competition. So let me switch over and share my screen. I'm already sharing my screen. Let me share the browser really quick. I said you can learn more, so you can go to acquisition.gov and go to Part 19. I'm not going to do a lot here, but go there and you can learn a lot more about the official way they describe the small business program. Another thing you can do is just go to SBA and type in small disadvantaged business, or go look for any of their different programs that they have, and you can learn more about it. I'm only focusing on the four main ones, right? Another thing I'm just pointing out here is in SAM.gov, if I went to look at opportunities and I'm going to search for opportunities, when I think about set-asides and the small business programs that I'm talking to you about today, these are the ones I'm talking about, right? And here you see FAR 19.3 or whatever, or 13. You can learn more about these the official way. I don't ever care to be a factual expert on these things because the document's there. I can always go back and reference it. But my point is, if you look down, this is what you're seeing: 8A, HUBZone, SDVO, woman-owned. And down below, you see buy Indian businesses, etc. Those are separate. I left them out because there's the pool of businesses are much smaller there. But let me come to show you this last part, which I really want to show you is inside of USASpending, you can come in and look at those 4 programs I'm showing you and see how much money is being spent. And the reason I'm doing this is twofold. One is to show you really quick how you can do this research yourself. The other is to get you to not buy into the hype, but just buy into the possibility. So I'm going to go into USASpending. I'm going to go really fast. Just keep up with me. But I'm going to say, just show me FY 2023. And then I'm going to come down here. And I always like in USASpending saying, show me contracts so I don't see the rest because it has a lot of extra data. And really quick, just to show you, I'm going to submit a search. And you can see, let me scroll a little bit. You can see right here, there's 6 million opportunities basically, right? And that represented $750 billion. There's basically the contract dollars that were spent in 2023. If I filter it down by those 4 programs, this is what I want you to understand and to begin to see what's out there and how you can track on it. So let's take the first one, 8A, because it's sitting at the top. Basically, those 2 are the ones that cover down on everything. So I'm now looking at 8A set-asides, right? That's what I said I wanted to do. Remember, there was like 5.8 million or something. So there's 17,000 actions that were 8A compared to those 5 million. So it drops a lot. But the money's pretty good. So if I come in here on the money, it was $14 billion basically set aside for 8A small businesses. And this is an important thing to be able to see. And then one last thing I'll show you is you can come in here to the category tab. And if I click on sub-agencies, which is a way to see this a little easier, remember I said the Army is just spending way more than anybody else. Here you're able to see how much money, like $3 billion was in the Army, and the Air Force, which is the next closest person, is 1.5, so 50% less. But I can see here, which agencies use 8A the most? So let's switch that now to the other programs. I'm going to expand this. I'm going to get rid of the 8A. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to choose all the women-owned ones. So there's economically up there, and then down at the bottom, there's women-owned small businesses. And let me come up to the top here. So there was 17,000 set-asides, keep this in mind, for 8A businesses. There's 6,000 8A businesses. There's 10,000 plus women-owned small businesses. There was 17,000 contract actions basically with 8A, but only 4,500 with women-owned small business. This immediately is me telling you less than 1 out of 2 women-owned small businesses even got 1 award, right? When you average the numbers out. That's a big deal. And it was, what was it, 17 billion for 14 or 17 for 8A, and it's 1 billion for women-owned small businesses. The government had $700 billion in government contracting spend in 2023, and 1 billion of it was set aside to women-owned small businesses. This is where I want you to remember the hype. The government, SBA, will talk about how women-owned small businesses won $20 billion or $28 billion or whatever in contract value. It wasn't because of the government. They did not set it aside. It was because women-owned small businesses went in there and won it. They took it with their qualifications, their past performance, their skills, et cetera. But the government is not going to sit there and start throwing out a lot of set-asides. And the reason I'm saying this is not so much to blame the government. I'd love to do that, but it's a waste of time. It's to make sure you understand that getting a woman-owned small business certification is not going to magically get you a lot of contract dollars. The 1 billion in spend there, and here the number of contracts, well, it's gone now, but it was 4,500, right? Let's do these last 2 really quick. So get rid of economically disadvantaged. I'm looking for the main hub zones. There it goes. And then let me get rid of the women on the bottom here. And if I come up and I do that same thing, remember we had 700 billion in total spend. Women-owned small businesses got 4,500. These guys, they got 2,600. These businesses was like 5,000 or 6,000, so about the same as 8A. except for these businesses are an entire community of disadvantaged, right? Disadvantaged business utilization zones. But they got 2,600 contracts, and the amount of money that was set aside, again, $1 billion. So when I look at women-owned small businesses in particular, I'm like, they are not getting served by the women-owned small business program. My point is government contracting is great. These certifications, these small business programs, don't look at them as magic tickets or something. And if I come in here and do the same thing on the, let's see if it loads pretty fast. I want to get down to the SDVO and just show you that. But right here, you can see, I think it was $3 billion the Army spent $3.5 billion with 8As, and they spent $1/4 billion with HUBZones, right? And so that HUBZone certification, this is why I tell people, don't even waste your time. You know, if you happen to solidly live in a HUBZone, get the certification. Otherwise, forget about it. It's not going to be this magic ticket for you. And let's talk about SDVOs really quick. That's the last group. Service disabled veteran zones. Where are you? Service disabled? No, not that one. Sole source and set aside. So I picked the sole source and set aside for each of these small business programs. So if I come back here, there was 17,000 actions for 8As, 20,000 for SDVOs. This makes more sense because there's like 14,000 service disabled veteran-owned small businesses where there's 6,000 8As. And so if you look at the spend, $9 billion, really respectable spend there. 8As got $17 billion, $9 billion for SDVOs, $1 billion for women-owned small business, and $250 million for HUBZone. That's factual information about how well that program works. The ability for any of us to make money in the government is really dependent on our ability to sell and to get in and talk to the customer, et cetera. It does not depend on our certifications. And then the last thing you can see right here, look at that number, right? So there was, come here, $7 billion went to service disabled veteran owned. If you're an SDVO, the VA is a great place to get into. And so that's something we track on. And then Army is the second highest in there. So these are good things to track on. Let me just come back. The whole idea is I want you to get in and review your tag with USASpending. You can also review which agencies are doing the most with your tag, with what you sell, and it will change the name. But get in there and look at it. Determine that best agency for your business, whether it's the VA or Army or somebody else, right? And then reach out to people who already have a woman-owned small business or HUBZone tag and go, how's that working for you? Like people who are in your type of business, are you getting a lot of set-asides from that? If you reach out and talk to them about it, you'll begin to understand more about the small business program and whether it's really going to be that big of an asset for you. And certainly just wait until you know how to sell before you go after really any of these. Hopefully you found that valuable. Just remember, as you're doing any of this, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.